Question 6. I call on the Honourable Member for Arbory, Castletown, Malew, Mr Moorhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I would like to ask the Chief Minister why coroners and courts are able to pursue tenants, notwithstanding there being a protected period under emergency regulations.
I want the Chief Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Honourable Member for his question. Tynwald approved the Emergency Powers Coronavirus Protection from Eviction Regulations 2020 in March this year. These provided that a landlord could not seek eviction of a tenant for failure to pay rent for a period of 90 days from the date they were made. The regulations were then subsequently modified and extended through the Emergency Powers Coronavirus Continuation No. 2 Regulations 2020. This protection for eviction for failure to pay rent will remain in place until the 26th of December of this year. This means that a landlord cannot evict a tenant for failure to pay rent until the 27th of December, and any notice of eviction issued by a landlord to a tenant who has failed to pay rent in full has no legal effect. Similarly, the courts will not issue any possession orders which relate solely to the non-payment of rent during this period. It should be noted that the regulations only relate to a tenant's failure to pay rent in full or at all. A landlord can still issue a notice of eviction for other reasons, such as criminal damage to their property. Mr Speaker, the regulations do not prevent creditors from pursuing any other debts which are otherwise considered payable, and the coroners have and will continue to enforce such court judgments that are passed to them for execution.
Supplementary question, Mr Moorhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you, Chief Minister, for that detailed answer. For clarity, the only change which has taken place between March and the 26th of December is that eviction cannot occur. Everything else remains as it was. With regard to the no legal effect that was mentioned in the previous answer, could a little more clarity be given on that, please?
Chief Minister to reply.
Thank you. And this is a complex issue, and I'm more than happy to give the best understanding to my capabilities. So it is correct, Mr Speaker. Once the regulations are no longer in force, landlords will need to make arrangements with tenants for the payment of any rent arrears. In making arrangements, landlords must make reasonable allowances that take into account the financial circumstances of tenants, which are attributable to any income loss experienced due to the effects of the COVID-19. The courts would, however, consider the actions of the landlord in attempting to make arrangements with the tenant for the payment of arrears before agreeing to these. The landlord must make reasonable allowances for the financial circumstances of the tenant as a result of the pandemic. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that some court orders for possession have been made over the recent period since March 2020, but only insofar as they do not relate solely to rent arrears, so i.e. for disturbance, noise pollution matters, criminal damage, etc. Furthermore, if I can say, whilst you will not be evicted from your house where you're living up until that period, the coroners have the right to go in and see if they can arrest maybe a luxury car or contents to go towards paying the debt, but you cannot be physically evicted from said property. And that also gives protection to a business if it has not paid its bills. Our coroners can go after the owners of that business to get the monies, but they cannot evict that business from the property until the 27th of December. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Mrs Barber.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Is the Chief Minister aware of the growing number of people who are landlords where they have a small number of properties or properties within a pension fund where actually this now has increased the burden on them, and we've inadvertently, while protecting one sector of the community, actually created a real crisis for another sector? And if so, what's he doing about it?
Chief Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Yes, I am aware that there are people who've taken out mortgages to be landlords, who are good landlords. I think the survey we've had on private rentals shows that about 90% approval for landlords. So the vast majority of landlords are good. Some are finding themselves in tough positions, but this was a temporary measure designed to protect vulnerable people whilst we were going through a pandemic. It expires on the 27th of December, so obviously subject to Tynwald Court, and we are where we are. There's always, sadly, winners and losers on this. It was designed to protect vulnerable people, but it wasn't forever. But I do take on board the concerns that the Honourable Member for Douglas East has raised regarding landlords who are out of pocket and have mortgages and bills to pay themselves.
Supplementary question, Mr Moorhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Do you currently have the figures of how many people have been taken to court or experienced a coroner's letter during the protected period?
Chief Minister.
No, I don't have that information. If I'm able to get it, I will circulate it to all honourable members.
Supplementary question, Dr Allinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Would the Chief Minister agree with me that this is a very complicated issue and that our independent coroners and court system deal on each of these cases on a very much an individual case, because often there is a balance to be made between payment of rents, obligations of landlords, but also obligations of tenants? Thank you.
Chief Minister to reply.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with the comments from the honourable member, and maybe for a declaration of interest when I've been asked by the honourable member for Douglas East about private landlords, I have to declare that I am a private landlord, Mr Speaker.